This is Radar for On the Renter Tape Blog, coming to you with another edition of Movie Reviews and Observation number 96. This week's movies were probably better than the last two. I got the movie Horror Noir, which was like an 80-something minute documentary of the history of black people in horror film. It had the likes of Tony Todd, who was Candyman. It had Keith David. It had a bunch of other people. They had historians, filmmakers. It was interesting. It went from they went to blackface on white people as the bad guys. It went to them being gangsters and pimps, them being the bad guy, to them being first killed off, and then exploitation. There was a whole exploitation era. So it was just a very educational documentary, and I was like, you know what? That's something I do notice as somebody who's watched so many movies over the years and seen classic horror films and horror films nowadays. So I understand, like Get Out, like a lot of these people, a lot of times in a documentary you don't learn anything that means anything to you, but as a guy who watches a lot of movies, I thought this was pretty good. Then the movie Rogue Hostage, which has John Malkovich, it's got Tyrese Gibson, it's got Michael Jai White, and you're like, okay, cool, this is something that's going to be a really good movie because it's got big time actors. Tyrese Gibson of the Fast and Furious franchise, Michael Jai White, who's all in these action movies, and John Malkovich is a big time actor. And you're like, cool. But I watched this with my roommate. The movie was very cliche, and you could understand right away like what the lines were going to be, what was going to happen. And basically, John Malkovich is this politician who gets somebody trying to get revenge on him because they're like the sons or whatever. And Tyrese Gibson is a soldier with PTSD who's trying to raise his daughter because his wife died, his mother died, and Malkovich is supposedly a stepfather in this whole entire equation, and he takes care of his granddaughter. And these people try to steal or like set up Malkovich at one of the stores he happens to own as a politician. And Michael Jai White's like the overzealous security guard and blah blah blah. And they have, a lesbian couple that's biracial and a high school girl and a little Hispanic boy because his day job, Tyrese Gibson, is he helps, children because he works for child services and he's trying to help these kids. But like have the little Hispanic boy help them save the day. The high school girl do something who's a stealer, who steals stuff, and the woman who runs the store and her black lesbian girlfriend. It was just like, okay, them trying to save the day and Tyrese Gibson not wanting to use guns despite being a veteran and trying to kill, and it was just like we knew that he was going to save the day and protect everybody, but then all these other people did things to help save the day, and it was okay. There was enough action going on and interest in the movie, but I guess Malkovich needs the money because some of these movies he's in is just average. Then I saw another movie where we got three big time actors: KJ Apa of Riverdale, Scott Adkins of all these British, action movies like Accident Man, and James Remar, who's been acting for years and was most recently in Black Lightning. They try to make this movie like a Romeo and Juliet love story, but also make it like a crime thriller, suspenseful action movie. And I'm like, you put way too many genres into a movie, it's not going to work. And the movie's not even about the three big actors. It's about this girl whose parents died mysteriously in a plane crash, and then you find out that her father worked in the FBI, and he stopped this criminal who did this bombing in like New York or something, and that bomber is Albanian or something, and happens to be that his sons are both Scott Adkins and KJ Apa, which way too much of a flimsy plot there, and that Scott Adkins, who's British, puts on a horrible like Albanian accent. KJ Apa has lived in America pretty much his whole entire life. And then James Remar happens to be this girl's godfather and worked with the father. But there was like no indication that she goes, yeah, my father worked for the government. She lives with her aunt. And then they throw in her aunt runs a clinic, but then also runs a bar with her girlfriend, younger Asian woman girlfriend. And it's like, okay. And she doesn't like, obviously, that her parents died. And when she finds out that this guy did it, she's like, I hate that guy. But then when he finds out that this girl he's dating's father is the reason why their father died and his partner killed them and all this other stuff. There's way too much going on, and their love story gets destroyed. And KJ Apa is always the good guy. It's not his fault who his father was or who his brother is. And I'm a huge fan of Scott Adkins, but in this one, playing the horrible accent Albanian bad guy was not really his thing. And Jamie Remar playing the agent who was helping out, I thought was good. And it wasn't too long. It was in the 90-minute range almost. And despite all of its flaws, it was a lot better than some of the movies that I've watched the past couple of weeks with my roommates, and even better than Rogue Hostage. So it's one of these straight to DVD or like streaming movies that, yeah, you can watch because you'll like it. It's not bad. And who doesn't like KJ Apple? Like, you definitely want to watch him. He's a good actor. Then I watched Nina the Woods, and this library decides to call it sci-fi on the sticker, but then the back calls it thriller, and I'm like, it's basically this woman who wants to act they're like, you're from this town, so we need like an expert in this town as we go looking for Bigfoot. But when they look for Bigfoot, a bunch of mysterious things happen, and like they see visions and all these bad things, and there's like a curse or something, and it's like, oh my god, we're under a spell, and they're all doing weird stuff, and it's just a lot of talking and a lot of weird stuff going on, and you're like, I'm glad this was only 92 minutes because this was boring, uneventful, and just not scary or science fiction-y or thrillery. It was just a boring drama. So don't watch Nina of the Woods. It was a waste of time. Then I watched Random Acts of Violence, and I said to myself, I love Jay Baruchel. He directs, writes, produced, it puts his whole entire effort into this movie, and he's in the movie. And I'm not a Grey's Anatomy fan, so I don't know Jesse Williams' acting, but he did good in this one. And I know Jordana Brewster from Lethal Weapon TV show and the Fast and Furious franchise. So Jesse Williams is a comic book writer, and his girlfriend or wife, Jordana Brewster, also does stuff with comics. Jay Baruchel's another comic book guy, and he's got a girlfriend. And this movie takes the whole entire idea of there's a famous killer that happened, and Jesse Williams decided, I'm going to make a comic book based on that. But this killer decides, you know what? I'm going to go back to make killing people because this guy announced he's no longer making a comic book about me. So they're on this way to like a Comic-Con thing, and all these murders are happening on the way. Jay Baruchel and his girlfriend and Jordana Brewster all get attacked and killed, and then there's like flashbacks. That is it, the comics flashbacks of the killer himself and how he became a killer, or is it Jesse Williams as the kid? So it got a little confusing what these flashbacks were, and in the end, obviously, only one person could survive. Jesse Williams, or the women, or the men, and he pretty much survives, and that's how a lot of horror films are, where one person in the end survives the whole entire film, no matter what's happening. I liked how they took like the aspect of a comic book creator getting an actual real source and then coming back to haunt him. But like, it's just, it was okay. I'm sorry, Jay, that you put all this effort into this movie, Random Acts of Violence, and it was an okay horror film, but it's like, I could sense this was like things that I've seen in other horror films, so it was like, it was okay. And the only positive thing was very slow. I mean, very short of a movie, not slow. Then I watched The Death of Me with Maggie Q, who's an underrated actress. She's in a lot of movies where she has to carry the script, and she does great. The script is bad. The whole entire movie's not that great. Like the Fantasy Island movie was horrible. She carried that. She's in shows where she gets killed off or she's got to carry it. And then you don't have one of the Hemsworth from Big Time movies. You got Luke in this movie, and this movie was 90-something minutes, so it wasn't that long. So basically, they take the trop of they're on an island, there's rituals on an island, and they believe in like sacrificing people so that everybody's great on the island. You got all these voodoo curses and mythological like totems and things happening, and she's having visions because she was like drug hallucinating. She's seeing things. She can see like the dead and the living, so it's got a supernatural aspect to it. It's got a whole, they're stuck on an island, they're trying to get off the island, and nobody believes them, the stuff that's happening to them. So it's like, I've seen this in a lot of horror films where they're trying to escape from somewhere, nobody's helping them, they're turning a blind eye, they don't really care, they're screwing around with them, their phones and passports are gone, and they're like stuck and they're trying to get off. And then the whole like trying to survive in a movie. So it's like they took elements from island people, backwoods people, mythological, like supernatural curses and rituals, and it was gory, there was weird images, it was creepy, so it got all different elements there. And then it had like the whole nobody believing them, they're trying to survive, and they're like, they can't get off the island, there's supposed to be a typhoon, and they just need to get off because of what happened to them, and they're all this weird creepy stuff, and all these different elements in the movie. And it's like, let's throw a bunch of elements into a survival film, and let's throw one Hemsworth brother in and Maggie Q and see what happens here, where everybody's speaking in the language that they don't know because they're on Thailand. They're American. They don't really know. And there's a lot of confusing elements in the movie, so it was like similar to Random Acts of Violence, where they took themes and other elements from other horror films and blended into one. And, you know, as good as Jesse Williams was in that and Maggie Q in this, it was like, okay, this is not really well put together, and the movie ends like on a cliffhanger. Do they want to make a second one? Like, I don't get it. Then I watched First Blush, where I'm going to tell you this. A lot of movies that deal with poly relationships, it's all about the sex, and it's all about who's in control and what's going on. This movie was exploring like the emotional aspects of a relationship. How how they all affect it. How does the original couple deal with this woman and what she does outside? Then they throw in their other group of friends who are about to get married, and they look up to them as marriages, and they're like, how do you do this? But I didn't understand, let's throw in that this woman who joins this relationship, her brother is gay, and he's judging them on their poly relationship, just to throw that in there. And this movie kind of dragged on for an hour and 40-something minute movie. I felt like it could have been 90 minutes. But yeah, it's basically about exploring the anxieties and all the issues that I have when you become a polyamorous relationship, you and your husband, and you adding somebody. Do you fall in love with them? Do you fall out of love with them? So I thought it was an interesting take on this movie. I just felt like, it was okay. They're either everybody's gonna separate, divorce, never see each other again, or they're all things are gonna work out in the end. Those are the only two ways it's gonna work, and I thought it was okay. So I think the best thing that I watched this week was the horror noir, because I actually learned something, and it was interesting to see all the interviews. I feel like Dead Reckoning, despite its flaws, is a watchable movie, and same thing with Random Acts of Violence and Death to Me and Roll Constant. Despite the flaws with the script and the actors who were really good trying to propel this movie, make it better than what it really was, they did an okay job in these action and these horror films. They're throwing a bunch of stuff together. I think the only movie that I would not suggest to anybody is Nina the Woods, because it was just horrible. First Blush would probably be second movie I wouldn't suggest if it's not your thing, but overall this week, if 6 out of the 7 movies are watchable, that's a pretty good week of watching movies. Thanks for listening to another edition of Movie Reviews and Observation number 96. For On the Radar Table, I'm Radar. See you guys next time.